So hello, I'm Bob Anglin. This is
Phil.
And this is
Jess.
And we are going to talk about Arro Social today. We're going to talk about Web3 and a lot of other little topics surrounding cryptocurrency and other things. So let's get started. Let's start with what's going on right now with Arro Social and where we're at. What's an update on where Arro Social is right now and where we're heading.
Cool. So I'll take the lead on that. So we got a lot of exciting things happening. We're going to be going to the South by Southwest Festival and going to the Startup Crawl on this Friday. So that's March 11th. And so we're going to be introducing some things. And if you're in Austin, Texas, make sure you go sign up for the South by Southwest Crawl. And we're going to be introducing basically what we're calling it is the monetization.
It's the Arrowverse.
It's the Arrowverse, right?
So what the Arrowverse is, yes.
So we're introducing the Arrowverse. It's earning on the Arro Social and then basically using it anywhere in the world. The Arro Social app is out and working, and we've got updates coming. And then basically we're building the XBOSS network out as fast as we can to companies that want to use the XBOSS to be able to utilize the Arro token.
Let's talk about what the Arro Social Token, we're talking about that a little bit. What can Arro Social Token already do? And you talked about PundyX. Do people really know, like, what that means? That it can work on a PundyX system.
So the nice thing about PundyX is it is worldwide, right? It came out of Singapore. The U.S. is holding folks accountable. Europe is holding folks accountable, and so is Singapore. So it's like the third or fourth recognized crypto entity that is being recognized for not just signing a piece of paper and saying everything's hunky-dory. So Arro is being recognized along with some of the other top 10 cryptos as being held on the PundyX machine as being able to be traded on the XBOSS. So that's pretty exciting news that we're being ranked with some of the top 10 crypto.
Yeah, and I don't know if you would call it legal tender, but it's definitely been approved according to the legally approved in Singapore as a payment token, something that you can make payments with. And that's why it's on the XBOSS system. That's why it's one of the few. I mean, Bitcoin, Ethereum, USD Tether.
Yeah, the DAI.
A few others, and Arro Social Token. And that means that you can literally go. PundyX also, their big thing now is pushing these exchange kiosks around the world. And they're opening new ones all the time. So literally, you can, if you have a bunch of Arro Social Tokens and you're in Istanbul, you can go over to the PundyX thing and you can get Istanbul money with
Turkey and South America and Africa now too.
Yeah, and not to mention also any place that accepts it at the shop itself, where you can go in and get a cup of coffee or whatever. Which of course that's a bigger thing in Singapore, but it's Central America and South America that's growing really quickly. The acceptance of through point of sale devices of cryptocurrency, and we're one of the few cryptocurrencies that actually can do that, which is awesome.
Yep, and we've also recently signed the contact that we are the sole representative in the U.S. and Puerto Rico, that we are the distributor for the XBOSS machines here in the U.S.
And this is something we brought up, I think yesterday or day before yesterday. We were talking about this, and this is something that most people don't realize, that Verifone, both Verifone and I think the other one's called the PAX machine. These are point of sale devices that you'll find in every Walmart, HEBs, Kroger's. They're all over the world already, right? What people don't realize is that the software for PundyX is actually embedded in the new machines already. It's just a matter of these entities, these stores, chains, Walmart, whatever, to literally say, I'm going to turn that on and accept it. So it's already there in place and able to be accepted. It's just a matter of us creating that saturation level that makes them realize that they can make money doing that way. As soon as they see that there's money in it, they'll, of course, switch over to that. So that's cool.
Yeah, it's very exciting. We're in a real good position, and basically right now it's about awareness, right?
We've been doing a lot of efforts and, trying to get some more marketing done for the company. We realize that this is requiring a big push that you don't necessarily see a lot going on within the social media space. So which is why we're going to talk about Web3 today and hopefully get everybody to understand a little bit more about what that entails as far as, decentralization and so forth.
Yeah.
It's really interesting. If you follow any of these influencers on TikTok, Instagram, and there's some of them that are there like, watch out for this. This is the wise way or the smart way to invest in crypto, NFTs, whatever. And the big thing that they're saying now is go research the social media of a company. And this is how you look at them to see that they didn't just invent that, because that hasn't been a big thing lately. Is there have been some notable scams, especially in the NFT thing, where an entity comes in, they literally buy 100,000 followers, they they steal a bunch of pictures from somebody else's accounts, they put it on their accounts, they make their accounts look like they're big things, they push, and they make them look like tons of people are following, and then they put out 1,000 to 10,000 crazy ape NFTs, and then they walked away with the money, closed all their accounts, and nope, they're nowhere to be found. So because of that, you have an increasing amount of people being like, this is how you look at it. So even more than ever, crypto and its value is hype driven. It should be community driven, where it's people working together to do something, but it's largely driven by, can I hire this influencer to say they like my token because it's going to go to the moon, more than it's about people coming together and creating something together. And that's something that we need to address also. But when we start talking about this Web3 stuff, I think that'll be part of what we talk about. There are some big influencers in the crypto space on Instagram, TikTok, whatnot. And I thought it was really important to look at what they're saying, and because they kind of typify the mentality of social media in a Web3 world. And social media, as what they're asking for, is a decentralized social media. And that's what they think of when they think of crypto and whatnot. So I'm going to just play, each of these are pretty short.
I'm waiting for the centralized platforms to crumble. And I'm waiting for that new, it's very hard to launch a social media platform that's decentralized and get a user base, a big user base. So I'm waiting for that one that's going to do that. And I do think Web 2 companies, it's over. It's game over. We're here, we're going to run stuff. I don't own my followers on TikTok. TikTok owns those followers. If TikTok goes away, it's gone like that right now. I'm just going with it. It's happened so fast, right? I'm just trying to build a big crypto audience and help people get into the space.
Okay, so that's the first one, and that's just the feeling of what people are asking for, the crypto world and the social media world coming together, what they're asking for. So just quickly, reactions. What do you guys think?
So he's talking about bringing down big tech, and the key point he talked about was ownership, right? And so he is absolutely correct about ownership, right? Not paying for your creation of content and not paying enough for that content is the key issue here, right? If you don't have ownership of what you're creating, then you'll never be able to bring back any of the control, any of the direction. That's literally what people are complaining about and upset about, and all that power and control will just be continued to direct the value and the money in that one central location. So the key thing that we are actually focusing on in at Arro Social is that ownership. It actually does bring that value and that that control back to whoever creates it, and that is our main focus, and what we want to do to make sure that you get your earning and your content creation.
Good. Jess, what you think?
I kind of want to highlight what he said about how difficult it is to bring that user base onto a decentralized platform. I think a lot of people who have followed us for as long as we've been working on creating this movement has realized that we've been a little slow and stagnant in some areas. Yes, we can highlight that in a many different ways by saying it's difficult to try to get somebody who has never heard, isn't familiar, has only briefly heard it in passing, to really understand the concepts that we're trying to push for their benefit. It's not just like, oh, we're going to benefit out of this more so than everybody else. That's not true. The whole point of decentralization is that there's nobody that's in control of this one specific entity. Entity being the social media platform, entity being Uber. It could be anything that could be decentralized. It's just difficult in general to get somebody to understand those concepts. So yeah, it's going to take a few tries to figure out how to better explain this to people in a way that's really consumable. Immediately people hear Web3, what is that? It's very simple, understanding what you kind of get the bits and pieces of it. But at the end of the day, if you're not willing to put in some of the effort and really learning about what it is, that's where you're affected. That's where onboarding people can be very difficult, which is what we've run into. It's kind of hard to explain people the benefit whenever it's too complicated or whatever else they kind of say it is. So that's kind of where we've been also on that note as well. So I'm glad he kind of spoke about it because it's not easy.
Yeah, I like that. That he addressed that. Right, he addressed that there's a difficulty. But this is something I was just thinking about while you guys were talking. Is and I want your thoughts on it. Is by very nature, if we say decentralized, right, and if my mindset is hard keep things decentralized, then by my very nature, I'm not amassing a lot of people together. Right, the very nature of being social is people coming together at one place, right? So it seems like if I'm saying it seems like there's like there's a conflict in thought, right? Yeah, we can have our own little groups all over the place. That's technically decentralized, right? But as soon as we start wanting to reach where you can be a place that can reach 1 billion people, like Instagram does, right? Or 3.7 billion people, 4 billion people, like Facebook does. The question is, can we be decentralized and still reaching masses of people? And therefore, having, of course, what we have to deal with is the monetary part, right? I mean, we could all buy our own. We could all buy into some social network that we all own. And we could talk to our friends on the social media network. You can literally have that just made for you online, and somebody will give you your own social media network, right? But can you really rival what's being done in social media right now in a decentralized world? What do you guys think?
Yeah, that becomes part of the problem, right? Some folks that I've talked to says, is it so when you amass this all together and then I'm only going to get $217, right? And so it's this part of the equation that I'm going to work all this hard, and then am I really only going to get $217, right? And so it's convincing people that the understanding that Facebook isn't giving you anything, right? The understanding that you are giving everything that you're creating, you're spending time, your efforts, you're giving everything away to Facebook for free, right? That is your efforts, your content, your story, your value. It's you, right? Whether you make $2.50, whether you make $1 million, whether you're the best person in the world, right? You give that away for free. And so that's part of the conversation, right? Now, if you're just, for my wife, for instance, right? She doesn't care, and that's fine. She has a great time. She shares with our daughters, and she shares with the family. She has no interest. It's fine. She's not wanting to make a profit. For our daughters who do want to make a profit, for those who do want to make a living off of that, and obviously for the influencers who have made a living from that, there's value. And for those who they want to earn that value from, and for companies that want to reach those influencers, then there's value in that market, and those are the people that should have some interest in it and try to build from that. That's the folks that should have some interest, and that's who we need to build this for, and that we need to take that control back to, and give that control back to them so they have the ability to do it instead of giving all that power, control, ownership away. That's the reality behind, in my opinion, why we're doing what we're doing. Before it's gone so far down a road that it's impossible to get back that control.
Jess, what you think? Got anything on that one?
The question was whether we think current social media platforms could go decentralized,
or do you think that that decentralized platforms could really go toe to toe with the big tech platforms that are already there?
To put it into those perspectives, you kind of have to look at what we are dealing with now and what the potential of what could be and its similarities, I guess. So, for example, we talk about like Facebook and, them having one central head of power. It's Mark or, the VCs that back them, their whole whatever, their leadership. And what they have done so far and what they continue to do to take advantage of everybody's content, their data. I mean, I'm getting really tired of, well, actually this doesn't happen. I deleted Facebook. But I used to get super tired of scrolling and seeing something I thought about and was like, that's just getting on my nerves because why am I thinking about those things? And it's popping up on Facebook. To the ability of Web3 and having it being decentralized, if everybody has a bit and pieces of this central decentralized model for social media, then I think that would give a little bit more equality back to the people. However, I don't actually believe fully that could fully happen until everybody has a piece and equal share of that. We can kind of take a look at the current blockchains now and see that some people have a little bit more power than the others, and it's kind of finding a balance between that as well. I mean, we could think of, Bitcoin and know that there's still the creator of Bitcoin who probably has as many coins and could create a different influence if he wanted to. Same thing goes with the creator of Ethereum. So those are kind of things to take a consideration of where we're trying to go and how much more we still have to go as far as being fully decentralized within the social media realm. And hopefully there's something out there that can help us, be a part of that, because that would be pretty cool, but very difficult.
Yeah, I'm just going to touch on two things real quick. One thing would be, I think that we're starting to come to like an understanding what people really are thinking, right? They're thinking that I get a say in what, the people using the networks get some kind of say in how that network works. And they're getting some kind of, they're getting part of the value of how that network works. And I think now we're starting to, like, if you start breaking it down to that starts being more doable, right? When you start saying, like, how do we bring value to the individuals, and how do we give people some kind of say in what's happening? The other thing is, I'm going to be just Zuckerberg's advocate for a second. Okay. Someone would say that you do not get that they're not just getting your content for free, that they're providing a service to you, and it's an exchange, your content for the service of being able to reach your friends. So just like I use a phone, I pay to use my phone, right? And the service that they're providing in exchange for the money I give them which is way more than I think it's $28. It actually breaks down to about $28 a year per user is actually how much they made, say, in 2022, about $28 per user. Then I pay way more than $28 a year to use my phone, right? I think I use way more than that in for one phone a month, right? So someone could argue that, right? But if we go back to, but you have no say in how they deal with your data, with your content. I just threw out a thing. Instagram did this to me. I mixed music on GarageBand, right? I made a mix myself. I took that mix and I put it on a little video I made, and I put it out there. The algorithm or whatever they're using, the AI, decided my music was somebody else's music and put it on their account as some of their music under their sound. And I listened to their sound, and it was very similar because it was the basic rhythm was a Middle Eastern standard rhythm loop, right? That this guy was also using. The algorithm couldn't tell the difference between mine and this guy's, and therefore credited him with it, even though I had made it myself, right? And I think there's a problem, right? Ownership becomes a big problem, right? And who gets to say if it's really ownership? And there's also absolutely no way for me to tell Facebook that they're wrong. They give you no way. All I can do is delete. Right? If I don't want this guy to get credit for my thing, I can simply delete my video. It's the only choice I have.
Wow, that sounds so wrong. Yeah. Like, in my opinion, that sounds all wrong, right? But that's becoming a problem, right? And it should be a question of who put it on there first, who owns what, and there should be some type of questioning mechanism that, and some determination process that who owns what. And then the reality becomes, it becomes a value proposition, right? And yes, it becomes about ownership and control, and some type of operation. That's what we're coming down to.
I want to show one more. I was going to break them up because they'd probably be better for me. But I'm
If you don't understand Web3, this might help you. TikTok was made for the world of Web 2. So right now we have TikTok right here. All of TikTok's information is right here. So if this server goes down for any reason, TikTok just stops working on everybody's phones. Now imagine if this server was dispersed and everybody had a piece of it. Imagine if TikTok headquarters was on everybody's phone in everybody's pocket. So in order to take down TikTok, you would essentially have to take down everybody's phone, which is nearly impossible. So in this decentralized world, who would be in charge of TikTok if there's no central power? Well, imagine TikTok issued a cryptocurrency. The individuals that hold the most TikTok coin, or whatever it would be called, would have the most say in changes to the TikTok platform. The theory is that if you have the most monetary stake in a platform, then you have less incentive to ruin it. Now apply that principle to everything. Uber, Google, YouTube. That, my friends, is what we call a decentralized autonomous organization. That, my friends, is the future, and it's coming faster than you think.
Okay, so there's two very different things that happen there. The first kid is talking about, like, this is what I'm looking for. This is what I want. The second one is imagine this, right?
Yep.
This is it's an imaginary version of what he thinks would be this decentralized world, or how Web3 would work.
Web3 is not an easy solution. Like now it's about memory, right? It's about memory and use of Web3 for a storage mechanism. My personal belief is if you want to make it social, make it social. If you want to make it private, right? Now it becomes about secrecy and storage capacity and all these things. And so Facebook has huge storage farms that cost a lot of money to run. Not saying that it's not expensive for storage, and if you want to keep your private data private, then there becomes a lot of storage capacity issues. If you want to share your product and make money off of it, we can help you share and be social. But we also don't want to be a storage farm for your private secret information, right? How are you going to be a social network and then have lots of secret information that you don't want to share with anybody? That doesn't make sense either. And so being social is about sharing. And then earning money is about sharing and growing your network. And so you as an individual need to determine what you want to share and grow your network about. And so all these decisions play together in a sharing, growing community and network. And so Web3 is about those decisions of what you want to share and what you want to grow and how you want to earn. And those are all tough decisions that then Web3 is about what nodes are going to be storing this information for usability and earning power.
Kind of just wanted to re-highlight something I had said in an earlier episode as far as decentralization, especially with the current climate that's going on overseas. There was a story that was stated that there were lines and lines and lines of fellow Ukrainians who had to wait outside ATMs and were limited to only a certain amount. And this is what banks were doing in order to, make sure that they weren't emptying out, I guess, the banks in a sense. But with decentralization, that would never be a problem because you're constantly having it with you at all times. Something that we have here at Arro is that we focus on having a mobile wallet. We utilize the X wallet because it partners well with our POS device, the Pundi XPOS. So having things like this and talking about what Web3 could do for you and just highlighting something as simple as this isn't going to be stifled in any way. This is, the ability for you to access at any time whenever situations like these arise. And of course, we don't want this to constantly have to be a problem or a reason for you to go out and do something like that. But it doesn't hurt to know that you're constantly going to be prepared regardless of whatever happens. which is also something that I think is really important for us to kind of speak about as we go throughout this podcast.
Yeah, you know the saying, you don't put all your eggs in one basket. What's even better is a basket that other people can't get to.
Exactly.
That you can put somewhere that is literally impossible to get to. You talk about the Ukrainian thing, that, if you go back a few weeks to whenever the Canadian government started to attach the bank accounts of people who were protesting and the people who supported them, and their crypto wallets within the exchanges, the Canadian exchanges. These exchanges are centralized, right? This is why people are trying to say, if you're not exchanging, pull your money, pull your tokens out of the exchange. Don't leave them in those wallets. Because that's literally where almost all of the theft and fraud has happened in the entire crypto world over all these years, and all the massive losses have almost all been because people used exchanges as their wallet, and then the exchange gets hacked somehow, right? The central places is where it gets attacked, or the way in and out of these central places. So there was actually bank runs that people knew. You don't hear that on the main news, but there was actually, whenever they started attaching that, people were running on the banks and trying to get all their money out, because and the Canadian bank, and actually every bank, only holds about 10% of the actual currency in cash that they say they have. None of them can hand you more than 10%, right? My sister the other day was just like, I have to go write a written form to get cash out of my own savings account to go buy something for my business, right?
Well, and then like you hear that JP, Chase Morgan, and like all the other banks are starting to accept and, have crypto, or like the ability to buy and sell crypto from them. And that's convenient, that literally defeats the purpose of what it was created for. It wasn't for me to go to the bank and buy crypto. Why would I want to do that? I could just
exchange it between friends.
Yeah, the only time it needs to go to the bank is whenever you want to turn it into cash.
Which it would be later taxed.
Which now is a taxable event, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, but the only time that was if you go back 3-4 years ago, that was the big complaint, is that I can accept whatever your token is. How do I turn it into something I can actually turn around and buy something with? Right? We're actually trying to solve that by creating POS devices that do that. And it's just a matter of merchants, businesses, entrepreneurs starting to get together and say, okay, I'm going to accept this other form of payment, right? That is of value. And then we can get into other things, but
which you can now in Texas. Right?
That's a whole
do it in Texas,
but it's a whole other episode that we'd have to get into to talk about those issues. But on the whole Web3 thing, I think it's really comes down to where is the ultimate value, where is my value, where am I getting my value, and where is my say. Go back to what Jess had hit on earlier when she's saying, I'm scrolling through my Facebook and suddenly there's something that I was thinking about. Well, they're using social engineering techniques to drive consumerism, right? They're actually hinting at things to you in your feed, whether you know it or not, that are catching your mind, and they're actually making you think about things. And then they hit you with the sell, right? They've actually entice. Oh, your friend's talking about that, and da-da-da-da-da-da. And then I hit you with an ad from a tent on top of a truck, which always is something that I'm interested in. But there's actually a book that I'm going to try to dig up. I just saw something about it. It's actually foundational things that the Google engineers used in how you search on Google, and it's based on social engineering.
How fun.
Let's touch a little bit more on some of the other things that this kid said. The second kid, right? I don't have his name right now. I'll put it up on so everybody sees it, right? I'll mention his name later. His name is this, because he has a huge following. He has like 800 and some thousand followers on TikTok. But he kind of was more like, imagine right? So let's break down a few things. We don't have a lot of time. We only have like 20 minutes left, but let's break down a few things that he imagined, right? Some of which are really cool, and some of which are like, how viable is that? Especially for something that needs to move at the speed of social media.
Yep.
Okay. So first of all of my social media content is on my phone. And you would have to take down everybody's phone to take down all the content. So in a nutshell, that sounds like, from what he's saying, every phone is a node and therefore contains an entire social media in every phone.
Headquarter. So here's what some companies are trying to do, right? PundyX is trying to do that with a node to track PundyX's token, right? Just a token, not like videos and pictures and all that, right? So if they're just trying to basically track their token, that doesn't sound very viable for the size of a video. And so if it is just tracking yours, maybe, right? But then how are you going to share that or download it or access it when somebody else is trying to watch your own video and upload it? So in the near future, that doesn't sound extraordinarily viable. And kind of like how I hinted at with, like, Facebook has whole entire storage farms. I don't see how that can be store the entire video content of, even if you're breaking down a region on a phone. I just don't see like storing the Southwest on somebody's phone and then feeding that Southwest region off of a phone network in the near future, right? For a split second to press a like, right? And so if you're tracking a pointer, so like Phil viewed this and then you get a view and a token for that, I can see, yes, you can track a token for that, or you can get an arrow for that because you viewed it. I can see how you can track a view per that. But I don't see how you can play it, or I don't see how you can actually store that particular piece of content on that phone. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And what do you think, Jess? You're the programmer in here, so what do you think?
I mean, the basis of it is, if you're going to have a lot of data, you're going to need a server to hold that data.
Yeah.
All the computer space in the world, with that, you could probably upload like 3 videos,
Yeah,
if anything, and that's it. So, I mean, to imagine something like that, yeah, that looks like some pretty powerful technology, but at the end of the day, that's not something that's currently viable at the moment. We don't have it yet, but I mean, nobody thought that we would have Web3 as early as we did now, and look where it's at now. So who knows? Like, somebody's out there probably building it as we're speaking.
Figure out the technology behind what
exactly.
they want. Right?
I mean, 1 hour of this podcast is about 5 gigabytes of, memory space.
Yeah.
So I can only have so many of those on my computer before I have to transfer
them to.
them
Set
to
us off yet, but I think it's hurting.
Yeah. And that's what I'm kind of saying. It's like you only get so much before it kind of shuts down. So as a powerful technology as that could be, yeah, that would be nice to know that no matter how often my phone dies, the power of it is still there. But currently, we're still needing those servers. Currently, that's where you always hear about those farms. No, they're not talking about cows. They're talking about server farms, places to hold your data. And that's where they're living at right now. They're
huge.
Yeah.
And I would argue that there are cows, they're data cows, and they're milking them constantly.
What a great picture. We have that picture, Bob.
No, I mean, yeah, I was just thinking my phone, I have to dump my whole phone, and this is just my phone's pictures, my photos in my phone about every 2 months, and mine holds like 20 gigs, I think, in the cloud storage. But I usually max out my cloud storage every couple of months, and that's just on what I use my phone for. This video we're doing right now will be 28 gigs at least for this hour. Now that's 4K and that's high quality, right? It always gets compressed. It gets compressed and probably ends up, by the time it gets on the web, it ends up being probably 720p or something like that, or maybe 1080 top. It compresses it down to probably 5 gigs before it'll get out there to say YouTube. But still, that's one person's podcast going on YouTube. So if we decentralize something like YouTube, which the kid mentioned, that's a ton of data.
And try to make a phone call in the middle of that.
Yeah. And the other thing is it makes it so that my social media then has to be accessible by everybody in the outside in order to be the point to get my thing, right? So yes, servers, I want to throw this out there, possibility, I think this is actually wise, the decentralization of servers.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really the key, I think.
I think that is the key, right? And that is the focus of the sharing, right? That everything's not focused on these gigantic farms, is that then the value can certainly be decentralized.
Yeah.
The control can be decentralized. The storage may not be, but the control, the value, the tracking, all that should be decentralized, and the decisions should certainly be decentralized.
Yeah. I mean, you can imagine. Since he's talking completely about imagining.
Yeah.
Imagine that you decentralize servers, right? Imagine 10, 20,000 servers that could hold everything. They don't have to hold all of it in one server, but they could all a bunch of them could hold parts.
Yeah.
That could accessible.
They talk about sharding all the time, and that makes a lot of sense, right? If you only lose 5% of your network, that makes a lot more sense than losing it all, than losing 40% of your network, right?
Yeah. Well, and it also, in the idea behind decentralization, crypto, the whole mentality behind where crypto comes from, it also makes things impossible, like the server and this person, these people getting together, colluding to shut somebody down.
Shut somebody down. Or kick somebody out.
Yeah,
right.
To shut down a whole company that has 600 million people following it, right?
Correct. Just because they want to.
Because they think that company is a threat to them on a political level, which actually happened a few years ago. Literally major tech companies colluded to shut someone down and shut them off. That would make it a decentralization where these servers are not owned by the central thing, but are owned by a lot of people spread out, and they could keep it going. If this person says, I don't want this, it's all right, because there's still another 1,000 out there that are still holding that data and protecting that data.
No, I think that's extremely important, right? Yep. Which goes back to the control, right? Command and control is basically what then you're talking about, right? And that's then decision making and all these other things that aren't just storage, right? It then falls back to decision making and all the other things that lie into big business and all the other things that you start hearing about with these large corporations, right?
Okay, cool. Well, we're running to kind of the end. Any last thoughts that we want to hit on before we go on? I mean, these are all things that could probably easily be broken down into whole episodes talking about each of these things. But any last thoughts?
I think lying through all this, I think the most important thing that I've heard through all these crypto conversations, I believe, is trust, right? Who you trust, where your control lies. I believe that trust, just the trust thread runs through all these things. If you don't trust people, then that's what we're trying to build into all this, right? You trust computers over individuals that try to collude, right? And so I think that's the important thing that we're trying to build into everything we're looking at, right? That's what's important to me.
Jess, anything last thoughts?
I think just to kind of highlight how just new this technology is, guys. You hear it everywhere, but you don't really know what it is. In reality, it's something that was created to make all of our lives a little bit easier, allows us to have more control of what we say and do when it comes to, these applications. It's your content, guys. It's your data. Where this isn't Web 2, where you can go ahead and just post something and we're at the whim of whatever site we're using to share our thoughts. We definitely shouldn't be continuing to utilize technology that prevents us from earning what we deserve. We're all creatives. We all want to do things that, earn us the potential that we deserve. And I hope that as Web3 develops, there's ways for everybody to really understand that and can connect with it in a way that it's not going to be so difficult to expand, decentralization. It should be simple as like, I want to be a part of something like that where it's not owned by one entity. It's everybody's. It's an open source. Everybody deserves a piece to contribute and also, determine whether or not that is going to work for them. The power belongs to the people and it always has.
Awesome. And I'm going to just wrap it up because we only have a few minutes left. But my last thing is this is just the first step too. The decentralized monetization of social media is just the first step. Once you have that in place, then you can decentralize the monetization of entrepreneurship, which has already happened with people buying their own coins, but getting your own coin is a big process and an expensive process. If people are able to use the same coin and that coin's not, raking you over the coals every time you're using it, if you're able to expand that into the marketplace and you're expanding it into other ventures, other new technologies going on in the web, you're able to expand that into gaming and entertainment and different things. And that one token or a token can simply be moved around in there without these huge fees until it leaves that system. That definitely is, I think, one of our goals. Am I right?
Absolutely. The Arrowverse wants to use the Arro token within one entity and one basically the Arrowverse, right? To be utilized free, maybe not freely, but be able to be used easily within that network.
And it's not until you leave the network that, Ethereum's going to come in and kill you with a gas.
Yeah, that's the goal, is to have the API utilized inexpensively, right?
Yeah, and save gas fees everywhere.
Yes.
Well, awesome. So we only that puts us down to about 5 minutes, which means we have to get out of here anyway.
Close up.
So that's it for this podcast. We're definitely going to come up with some. We'll hope to see everybody in episode 2. I think we have a pretty good crew here. We'll bring in some other people and some guests on here that can help us explain some other things, and that'll be awesome. So until next time, see ya.